Quick background on us for those that were not here last week. We are a financial planning firm that has worked with federal employees for 20 years, providing retirement benefits and retirement seminars for agencies, for groups like the Alumni Association, and also for individuals planning for retirement, looking at their retirement and looking at their pensions, survivor benefits, TSP withdrawals, health benefit options, and life insurance and long-term care. By doing that, today, as you'll see, we're going to keep it very high level, talking about your pension and Social Security today. We also say, though, that we are more than happy, if you'd like to sit down with you one-on-one and offer you a complimentary benefit analysis of your personal benefits and looking at your retirement. And I tell people it's to help you be in a position of not only when are you eligible to retire, but when are you able to retire. Big difference in one word there, eligible and able. So we look at that for you as a complimentary service as a member of the Alumni Association. Just ask that you reach out to us. My email is here on the screen that you can see, michael@livingstonfinancialgroup.com. Or you can go to our website, livingstonfinancialgroup.com. And on there's a button that says submit profile here, pretty big button there. If you click that, it'll bring you to a secure website that you can either download the form and fill out an email or fax it back to us, or you can complete an online secure form with your information. It takes about 20-25 minutes. When you submit that comes directly to me and my business partner. Then we can get back in touch with you about getting scheduled to go over your benefit analysis with you. So that's our plug. That's who we are. I've been doing this, like I said, for a number of years, working with different agencies and different employee organizations. So again, be more than happy to help you with that. So getting in today, we're going to talk about the FERS pension and Social Security. I do want to ask a quick question here at the beginning, and I'm going to say if anybody wants to, you're more than welcome to unmute your mic and let me know if you are. But I'm trying to see, is there anybody on the call today that you are under a special provision retirement system? For instance, like air traffic control or law enforcement. Is there anybody like that, or are we all regular FERS employees today? All right. I didn't hear from anybody, so I'm going to assume we're all regular FERS employees right now. I'm also going to say, as we go through this today, I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, it's a small enough group that if you want to unmute your mic and ask questions as we go along, please feel free to do that. I enjoy that. I like to have questions, and I enjoy it as we go along because we can be looking at the slides that you might have questions about. So let's go through this and get started. As we look at this, talking about somebody who we're going to use today for our example, when we look at some numbers on calculating your pension, we're going to use Joe Sample. Joe Sample is a federal employee in Anytown, Maryland. Pretty town if you've never been there. And he was born in 1966. He has an annual salary of $118,201. He's been working for the federal government since September 1st, 1988, with no breaks in service, and he's under the FERS retirement system. So this is who we're going to use for numbers. We are not saying this has to be you. It does not have to be your situation. Just understand this is who we're using for any of the calculations that we see today as we look at that. So what makes up Joe's retirement system? Same as you. It's going to be your pension, your Social Security, and your thrift savings plan. And I will say on that, that for what we're looking at is last week we talked about the thrift savings plan. So again, this one will be a different one. This is going to be the pension, and then we're going to look at the Social Security at the end of this for a few slides. All right. So when we talk about retirement eligibility, a couple things to remember as a regular FERS employee. First of all, minimum requirement is you have to have 5 years of credible service, and you must be a FERS on your last day of employment. Not sure what else you would be, but you have to be a FERS on the last day of your employment. To be fully eligible for retirement, you're going to have to hit one of these three requirements. It's your minimum age requirement with 30 years of service, age 60 with 20 years of service, or age 62 with 5 years of service. And you have to meet both requirements. I can't be age 60 with 19 years of service and be fully eligible. I have to meet both criteria. So in this case, first question a lot of people ask is, well, what's the minimum age requirement? And I'm glad you guys asked that today. In looking at that, It is based on your minimum age requirement is based on the year you were born. Has nothing to do about when you started working in the federal government. Has nothing to do with how many years you've been in the government. It's all based on the year you were born. So we have this chart here so you can write down what it is if you're not sure what it is. Again, for most people nowadays, we're going to be 56 or older that we have to be that minimum age requirement and have 30 years of service. That is the key. I'm going to say there's going to be a couple slides I'll slide past pretty quickly here because they deal just with special provisions. So if you see me go by a slide real quick, we're not missing anything. I'm just going by that because we do not have any special provisions here today. All right. So as I mentioned, Joe's pension and your pension is what we're looking at here right now at this point. And there's three parts to these. There's your contributions, your high three average pay, and then your years of service. Now we're gonna explain all of these and go through it. But I did want to start with just letting you know that these are the three components. And we're going to look at the calculation first. And then, like I said, we'll go through and explain each of the parts there that we have. All right. So as a regular FERS employee, your calculation is a pretty straightforward calculation. It's going to be 1% times your high three times your years of service. And that's going to equal your FERS pension is where you're going to be at. 1% times your high three average pay times your years of service. So an example here with Joe, he's going to retire at 57. His high three at the time of retirement is going to be $115,899, and he'll have 36 years and 1 month of service, including 9 months of sick leave. And we'll talk through this here, how that works with the sick leave in a moment. But if that's the case, that's including the 9 months of sick leave, the 36 years and 1 month. You're going to take the 1%. Notice it's 0.01. If you make a calculation and it shows that your pension is going to be higher than what you're making now, you've done a wrong calculation. So be careful, make sure you do it correctly there. It's 0.01 times that high three average of $115,899, and then the years of service. So it's going to be the 36 years. And then what you do is you take however many months you have and you divide that by 12. So 1 divided by 12 gives us the 0.0833. When you calculate that together, you get a pension of $39,502 here for Joe. Okay, that is the basic calculation. Are there any questions about that calculation before we move to the next point of that? All right. Well, one of the things they will do is they're going to say, if you're willing to work till age 62 and you have at least 20 years of service, they're going to give you a 10% bonus in your calculation. Now, the reason they do this is because if you work till age 62, you're not going to start getting any of the supplement that's available to you through Social Security, which we'll talk about later. But I did want to point that out, that if you go to 62 and you go 20 years of service, they're going to give you a 10% increase in your pension. It's going to be 1.1%, again, 0.011 on that, times your high three average pay times your years of service. So it gives you a 10% bump there at that point. Now understand, again, it's got to be both things, age 62 with at least 20 years of service. You remember a couple slides back, I said you're eligible at age 62 with 5 years of service. So you're eligible at 62, but to get this 10% bonus, you have to have at least 20 years of service, all right? So looking at this, and this is going to be something that we talk about, again, when I said earlier about not only when you're eligible, but when are you able. So we look at the situation here in Joe, and let's say for Joe at this point at age 57, when we look at his numbers and go through, his pension is going to be $41,820 in this situation. If that's the case, if you wait till 62, most likely, we're talking about 5 years later, we're most likely going to have a high three that goes up because of pay raises through that time for just cost of living, those kind of things. So in this case, we took it up to $127,962. We just had a small increase each year. Giving that plus now the 1.1, now that number goes up to $58,213. That's a difference of almost $15,000 or almost $17,000 a year increase by just waiting an extra 5 years to retire. That's over $1,000 a month, plus that's 5 more years of paying into your TSP, 5 more years of maybe paying down debt. So this could be a huge difference maker for you in retirement. And it's one of those things that I tell people, it's not even so much saying that you have to stay till 62. This is where we talk about looking at your options, knowing what your options are before you actually make that decision to walk away. So in looking at this, you'd have to look at it and saying, assuming, now again, we'd have to do some assumptions with the cost of living raises and inflation, those kind of things to see, is it worth you staying on? So in looking at this, we're going to skip the special provisions here on that. I want to focus on another area that might affect why you might want to wait until you're 62. Cost of living adjustments. This is what they give you in retirement as a way of hoping to keep up with inflation. This is not what we're talking about where you get cost of living adjustments and raises while you're working. That is something that is set by Congress and the president signs off on, and it goes into effect based on law that goes into place each year based on the budget. The retirement COLA is based on law that's already written into place, that if they're not going to give you a COLA, they'd have to change the law. So the way it works is it's effective December 1st of each year, means that's when they declare it so that you can get it on your first paycheck in January. It starts, and here's a big deal for you, as a FERS regular employee, it will start at age 62. Starts at age 62. If you were special provisions, it would start immediately. And I bring that up because if you're ever talking to somebody about retirement and they mention about COLAs getting them right away, they might be a CSRS employee if they're still there, or if they're under 62, they might be special provisions. So just understand, for regular FERS employees, that's all of us here on the call, you're in a place where you're not going to get any COLAs until age 62. Also, then your consumer price, it's based on the consumer price index. So this year, it was a very large one because inflation was high. And what happens is if the CPI is between 0 and 2%, you'll get whatever it is. If it's between 2 and 3%, you'll get 2. And if it's over 3%, you'll get whatever the CPI is minus 1%. So this year it was a very high one. Also, and something in that first little section about effective December 1st, if you're going to retire in the middle of the year or sometime in the middle of the year, and I'll use an easy example, if you retired at the end of June, so you're exactly halfway through the year, 26 pay periods, and you retire, and at the end of the year, they claim there's going to be a COLA for retirees of 3%. Since you were only retired half that year, it would be prorated. So you'd only get, I said 3%, you'd get a 1.5% raise because you were only retired for half that year. Going forward, then you'd be retired a full 12 months, not an issue. You'd get whatever the COLA is going to be. So that's how they calculate the COLA. So with that understanding, let me go back real quick, just a couple slides. Something I want to look at here with you just for a second is this understanding. If Joe here goes out at 57 and he's getting the 41,820, at age 58, he's getting 41,820. At age 60, 61, he's getting 41,820. He will not get his first raise until age 62. Now, one of the things we look at here is understand if he goes out at 57, when his raises start in retirement at 62, it's going to be based off that 41,820. Whereas if he worked till 62 and got a higher payout at 58,213, now those COLAs are going to be based on that 58,213. So again, that can become a huge difference through the years, not just in that first calculation, but think about that going year 4, year 5, year 6, year 10, because it's always going to be on a higher number there as far as how's that calculated. So something to think about. Again, I hope I'm not the bearer of bad news. I'm not telling everybody you have to stay till 62. I'm just making sure you understand what your options are and why you might want to consider waiting. If you're in a position that you're thinking about retiring at 60 or 61, it most definitely would probably be in your best interest to probably wait till 62 to get that pay raise. So if you have the 20 years to get that pay raise. Now, saying that, again, I'm talking just from a financial standpoint. I'm not talking about from a health or an emotional or a family situation, truly just talking from the financial side. So again, you have to see what's best for you and your family when talking about your retirement. All right. Any questions on that, on the 10% bonus or the COLAs? All right. Well, let's keep moving then. So how do we calculate? We talked about the three parts of your pension is your contribution, years of service, and the credible time that you have in there. So as we look there, and your high three was the other one. I'm sorry. So when we look at the contributions, first of all are what's being taken out of your paycheck every 2 weeks, and what you're paying into it. As a regular FERS employee, you're contributing 7% of your pay into your retirement. 6.2% goes to Social Security, 0.8% goes to your pension. So understand, for a regular FERS employee, if you're a special provisions or a CSRS, the numbers are different. But for a regular FERS employee, it's 7% with 0.8 going to your pension, 6.2 going to Social Security. I will say you're probably going to get a lot more out of the 0.8 with your pension than you will out of the 6.2. Just because of the way Social Security is working nowadays. But that is the way it's calculated. There is something, if you remember a couple of years ago, it's been about 10 years now, there was talk about raising the amount that you contribute to your pension portion and raising it by 3% for everyone. And when that came out, of course, a lot of people upset about it. And what happened was, they went back and said, okay, well, we're going to grandfather in people that were already in the FERS system, but we're going to start a new system. And they called it the regular FERS. They called it an RAE, FERS RAE. Still all the same benefits. It's just what they call a revised annuity employee. And it's anyone who was hired after January 1st, 2013. So within the last 10 years. If this is you, you are considered a FERS RAE employee. Again, your benefits are exactly the same. The only difference is now you're contributing 9.3% to your retirement, with that extra amount going towards your pension, the 3.1% now instead of the 0.8. So that's called a FERS RAE. Again, exact same benefits. You're just paying more into it. Now, I bring that up for two reasons. Number one, of course, if anybody here has been hired in the last 10 years, this would affect you. Number two, I wanted to bring up the fact of where we hear about where 10 years ago they were talking about trying to get everybody to pay more into their pension system. Usually this is the way it happens when the government wants to make changes to your benefits, is they'll put it out there that it's going to be for everyone. Then they'll usually back it off and say, well, we're going to grandfather people in. The reason I bring that up again is there's always talk of changing your benefits. You hear about going from a high 3 to a high 5. They're talking about getting rid of the supplement. They're talking about getting rid of the COLAs or changing how the COLAs are calculated. Most likely, if any of that stuff were to ever come out, most likely the first place it'll happen will be for new hires. They'll grandfather people in. And if they still need to make a change, then they'll look back at that. But almost always, whenever you've seen some kind of change like that, it's been where they've grandfathered people in. So just letting you know that. With that, I do want to share something that's not in the slides, and just this is a little bonus thing I tell people. There's a group out there, if you've never heard of them, called NARFE, N-A-R-F-E. It's the National Association of Retired and Active Federal Employees. NARFE.org is their website. I have no affiliation with them. Only thing I do is subscribe to get their magazines and be able to see their website. I tell people and get into the inside of the website there. I encourage you, their whole purpose of existence is to protect the rights of the federal employee. They exist to help lobby Congress to where when they talk about trying to get rid of some of your benefits, they step in to say, hey, this is why you should not. So once you retire, no matter what agency you're under, we all come under OPM then in retirement. And so I tell people, I'd want somebody in a congressman's ear talking on my behalf to protect my benefits. And that's what NARF does. If you want to, you can join the organization. It's not a high dues, but you do get the quarterly magazines. You get full access to the website, and they have some conventions and stuff that you go to. But if nothing else, their website is a great resource to see if there's any bills that might be in committee or coming to the floor in Congress that would affect your benefits. That way you can see what the bill number is, like HR bill, 230.125 or something like that. That way, if you want to contact your congressman, you have a little bit more ammunition as far as understanding of what's going on, that you could say, hey, why I'm against this. So just wanted to share that with you. Again, it's NARFE.org, National Association of Retired and Active. They added that part in now, federal employees. So again, just a little extra there to give you on that to try to protect it. All right. So let's skip past the special provisions there, and let's get to the other part. So first part of your credible service is coming out of your paycheck every 2 weeks. There are some other things that can also be considered credible service. Leave without pay up to 6 months per calendar year can be considered credible service for your retirement calculation. Reason I bring that up, two things. Notice that's per calendar year. So if you went from July to December of one year and then January to June of the next year, that whole year could be considered credible service because you only took 6 months per calendar year. Not recommending you do that, but just letting you know that is possible. The other reason I bring it up is times that there's been furloughs and times where worried about would you get paid or not in that time off, how would it affect your retirement. With knowing that you had to leave without pay up to 6 months per calendar year, you'd have to have some kind of furlough system that you never got paid for go into effect for more than 6 months. So we haven't even been close to anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that affecting your retirement. Workers' compensation, again, if you got hurt on the job, that can count. If you have any part-time service in the government before April 7th, 1986, you're fully eligible for the service and for the pension. They realized that was a little too generous. So they changed it. If you have any part-time service in the government after April 7th, 1986, you can use it for your eligibility, but your pension would be prorated based on the amount of hours you were working there at that point. All right. Intermittent days. This is a very specific group of people that usually work seasonal. WAE days is what you're looking at there. We see that a lot with firefighters, things like that. We do not see this in a lot of places, but if you have it, then definitely you can count that. Breaks in service up to 3 days. Only thing I can think there is you're changing agencies or you left service, you wanted to leave, you got out, you left, and you came back within 3 days. Those 3 days can still be counted as part of your credible service. And finally, military service deposits and redeposits can be counted as credible service. And we'll look at that in just a moment here and go through that. All right. So these, all these areas plus the money that comes out of your paycheck every 2 years or every 2 weeks is what is considered your credible service that can count towards your eligibility. All right. So let's talk about your high three, the second part of your pension. Your high three average pay is going to be your average pay over any rolling 36 consecutive months. That's key there. Notice what's in yellow. It's 36 consecutive months that you're paying into the FERS retirement system. This is only your basic and locality during that time. It is not including military time, overtime, any bonuses, any worked holidays. It's truly just your basic and locality. Unless you're a law enforcement, it could include leap pay that you have there. So again, for most of us, it's going to be just our basic and locality. I say it's the numbers you see at the top of your leave and earnings statement, where they show your basic pay with with your locality, and that's what it counts towards this. So notice again, I'm talking about 36 consecutive months. So a couple things on this. First of all, notice it is 36 months, high three. They talked about going to a high five at times. I don't see anything right now that's in any committee or on the floor that would change that right now, but just notice it is 36 consecutive months. You cannot just pick your highest 3 years that you would have throughout your career. It has to be 36 consecutive months. Now, for most of us, that's going to be our final 36 months just because of pay raises and things that we've had happen. That's usually what happens there. Does not have to be, though. It could. We had a situation, I use this as a great example, had a client we were working with that moved to D.C. to get a higher locality pay, was working there for a number of years, and his parents had started having some health issues, and he wanted to move closer to be able to help them. So he put in for a position at another location, got accepted, went there, but his locality pay dropped. So he was not eligible for retirement yet. So his high three was set based on his time that he had in DC. So his high three was not going to change until he reached eligibility. He was just working to try to get to that fully eligible point. So understand, it does not always have to be your last 36 consecutive months, but for most of us, it will be. Just to let you know that. The final thing on the 36 months I want to share is many times I have people that, I'll use an example, they wanted to retire at the end of December this last year. And they said, well, Michael, maybe I'll wait till January or February because we're going to get a nice big pay raise. Let me get that, and then I'll retire and add that to my high three. That's great if you want to do that, but understand, remember, it's your highest 36 consecutive months. So if I wait until February, I'm only going to have 1, maybe 2 months at that higher salary to be added into my 36-month calculation. So most likely my high three is not going to change that much at all. So just something to remember there. If you're thinking about waiting till you get a pay raise, you'd have to stay for the full 12 months to get that pay raise, really affecting your high three most likely at that point. All right. Any questions on the high three? All right. Moving along here. Let's talk about sick leave. For years and years, it was a situation where sick leave was a use it or lose it for FERS employees. And the government was amazed at how many people were getting sick during December, taking those sick days off. So they changed the rules now, unless you are under a bargaining group like NATCA or something like that, where you get paid out for your sick leave. For regular FERS employees that are not under a bargaining agreement, you're going to get your sick leave now can be added to your pension calculation. Now, the way it works is, first of all, you must qualify for retirement without that sick leave added in. So, for instance, if I have a year of sick leave and I'm age 60 and I have 19 years of service, I cannot say, well, I have a year of sick leave that gives me my 20 years. It cannot work that way. I still have to have 20 years of service to reach eligibility. Then I can add the year sick leave on for the calculation, as I'll show you here in a second. But just understand, I have to have the work to be eligible. I cannot use the sick leave to reach eligibility. Okay? So OPM has a chart they call the 2087 hour chart. It's your sick leave chart. The reason it's called 2087 hours is 2087 hours is what equals 1 year of added on time of sick leave that you have. Is 2087 hours. So what you're able to do is on the OPM website, and I always encourage everybody go to that website in case they change the calculations of how it's set up. We pulled this from it. I think it's been the same chart since 1997, I think, but just in case. So what you're going to do is you're going to find your hours on the chart or close to it. So in this situation, let's say it's 933 hours you have. I'd find 933 hours on the chart. That would give me 5 months and 11 days. By doing that, then I'd add that 5 months and 11 days into what I have for credible service. So if my credible service is 23 years, 3 months, and 10 days, I now have 23 years, 8 months, and 21 days. And then they're going to use the years and the months for the calculation, and the days will get truncated. Okay, so again, you figure out your hours to months and days or years. Again, if you have over 2087, you minus 2087 out of that. That gives you 1 year, and then whatever's left would equal whatever you have in months and days. But when you add that into your creditable service for your calculation, you're only going to use the years and the months. Now, with that could be some planning. If I'm at 23 years, 8 months, and 29 days or 28 days with the sick leave added in, maybe I want to work an extra few weeks to try to get that up to another month, the 28 or 29 days, so it bumps up to another month, because then now I can use that in my calculation and add that to a higher monthly amount for the rest of my life. Now, again, is it going to be a huge difference? No, but if it's a difference of $25, $50 a month that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life and COLA's on, that might be worth staying an extra couple weeks. Vice versa, if I'm 28 years, 3 months, and 8 days, I'm probably not worried about trying to get to the next level. In fact, I'll probably use a few of those days to do some doctor's appointments, get, some time out if I need to be out of the office for medical reasons. I would use those days to use them, since they're not going to get used in my calculation. I will say be careful on that though. If I'm going to have 8 days left over, I don't want to try to use all 8 days just in case you might have calculated wrong or something came up wrong. I'd hate to see you use 8 days and end up losing another month because you were off by one day. So use a couple of those days. If you have some days left over, donate them to the sick bank, those kind of things that you can do and help people out. Questions on the sick leave before we move on? I know this is all exciting stuff here, but we're going to get into some good stuff now. So that's all been how to do the calculations, how to understand how the calculations work of your high 3 years of service and your contributions. Now I want to give you a few recommendations here as you get ready for retirement or look towards it. Number one, check your retirement service computation date. Notice that word that's in yellow, retirement. You actually have with the government 4 different service computation dates. One's for retirement, one's for your thrift savings plan, one's for vacation and sick leave, which is the one you see on your leave and earnings statement. And there's another one, and I apologize because it doesn't work with the retirement benefits. So I can never remember the 4th one. I apologize. But the biggest thing to understand is the service computation date that is on your leave and earnings statement. That is for vacation and sick hours. It is not necessarily the same date as your retirement service computation date. Now, before anybody gets nervous or upset thinking, oh my goodness, that's the date I've been using this whole time in planning, for 95% of us, those dates are going to be exactly the same. They're going to show, if my service computation date on my leave and earnings says, 5/13/97, my retirement shows 5/13/97, fine. But if you're in a situation where maybe you've bought military time back, maybe you've left service and come back, you've changed agencies, there's been some different glitches that have happened, some things have happened, or just maybe some human error, your retirement service computation date could be different. So we encourage you, make sure you check that before you retire. And I always encourage people, do not wait till you're 2 months before retirement. You're going to want to check it now. The reason is if you find a discrepancy, I know they say you can go on your EOPF website. I can't get into your EOPF website to see this, but they say you can go on there and find your service computation date. If not, you can always contact your HR department and request a copy or confirmation of your retirement service computation date. They can get that for you. Reason we say that it's good to check it now is if you find a discrepancy, something that you think might be a mistake or something that can get counted in, maybe you bought the military time back and they haven't added it in yet. Again, things can happen. This is just life and there can be human error, is that it has to go to OPM to request to find out what the mistake is. And then it's the burden of proof is on you to show them where there's a mistake. I tell people, OPM is struggling. There's things that they're slow on with retirement that if you're looking to get this done, it's going to take them a few months to get it done. Your stress level is going to be through the roof if you're ready to retire and they can't get to it right away. So check it now. Take that stress off yourself. That way you don't have any pressure. If you find out everything looks good, then you're done. It takes you 20 minutes to probably check that. At least it gives you that peace of mind to know that that's correct. If there is a problem, then you can start the process knowing it'll take a couple months to get it fixed, but you're not under the pressure of, I'm looking to retire in 2 weeks, so you have time to get that fixed. All right? Second thing we recommend is be prepared for an interim pay when you first retire. So what's happened, as I mentioned, OPM is struggling to get retirement benefits out. They're overwhelmed. There's more retirees coming in than they have workers to help cover everything to get them completed because they have to go through each person individually because all of us have unique situations. So going through this, they're going to figure it out. But what they're going to do is they're going to take your HR estimate that comes to them, and they're going to give you roughly about 60% of that estimated amount is going to come to you. Now, normally they only take out federal taxes out of that. They don't take out state taxes. They don't take out your health benefits, survivor benefits. None of that usually comes out. Now, you still have all that, but they're going to be running a tab. And what happens is once they figure out your full pension and you start getting the full amount, they'll go back and figure out that now this is what we owe you that we didn't pay you during that time. But out of that refund amount, they're going to take out the state taxes, the life insurance, the health benefits, that they were paying for you. You're going to have to pay up your tab. So yes, you're going to get paid your full amount. Just understand it might come later in a larger chunk as they refund you that. What we tell people is during that time, make sure you have some funds set aside to help with your bills, because you're going onto a fixed income now in retirement, and you're not going to be getting as much as you thought. So having some money set aside in savings, in a checking account, in some kind of investment account, brokerage account, something somewhere that you can get a hold of during that interim period to make sure that you don't fall behind on bills and that you stay up on everything. I will say, a lot of people say, well, I'll use my TSP. That could be a possibility. Just understand TSP, you really don't do anything with until 30 days after you retire, when you turn in your paperwork, and then they can process it. And even then, it usually takes, you might be 2, 3, 4 weeks before that money actually hits your account. So you could be 8 weeks into retirement before you actually got your first TSP deposit. So it can work for you. Just understand that might even be delayed just a few weeks at that point. So just be prepared for it, that could happen. Average time right now is 16 weeks, so about 4 months. I've seen it happen as short as 2 months. They've had it done. I've seen it take as long as a year, where there's been some discrepancy and those kind of things. So just be prepared for that, and make sure you have all your ducks in a row when you go to retire. Part of that also, I will say, one of the reasons I saw where I said there was a discrepancy with the time that took a year was the person who bought back military time, and when they retired, they came back and said they had no record of the military time being bought. So it went through a long ordeal to prove things. Now, the problem is, as I mentioned earlier, if you have to reach out to OPM to get something corrected, it's going to take most likely a few months to do it, and a burden of proof is on you to prove that they were wrong. Well, the way most of the times you prove that are with your SF50s, which shows every time you've gotten any kind of change of jobs, change of agencies, change of pay, those kind of things. That is your proof of employment. Everything is electronic now. Whenever you've gotten letters of you paid back your military, or you bought back and you came back into service, all that's going to be in your file electronically. The problem is, if you are in a situation that you're retired and found a discrepancy, well, now you can't get into your files to get your SF50s or your letters or anything like that. You're going to have to request them from OPM, which is just going to delay the process more. So I tell people, another piece of advice I give is, before you retire, while you still can get into your file electronically, is I would go ahead and download my SF50s, any letters of, like I said, military buyback, pension buyback if you've come back to work, anything like that. I would download it onto a disk or a thumb drive and just keep it. That way you have the records in case you need them. Again, hope you never have to use them, but I'd rather you have them in place just in case. So just a little thing to maybe do before you actually retire. Another recommendation here that we'll talk about is military time and redeposits. Redeposits, again, is if you left service and came back. Military time, on that, as FERS employees, you are eligible to buy your military time back as a civilian and get it counted towards your years of service on your civilian side. And we look at that as, for most people, if you have military time, it's usually that first 4, 5, 6 years out of high school or college where you're not making a lot of money. So if you can buy 4, 5, 6 years of time back at your civilian side, where you're going to have a high 3 that's probably going to be much higher now than it would have been when you were in the military, buying that time back on your civilian side is probably well worth it. And again, notice I said probably. It's always worth contacting your HR, your retirement benefits group, about getting a calculation of what it would cost to pay it back. Again, it's going to take a couple months for them to figure that out. But once they get it to you, at least then, if you know the cost, now we can look at it either by yourself, or if you work with somebody like us to run the numbers, you could be looking at it to say, is it worth me buying it back? Is it going to give me enough benefit? Like I said, if it's the first 4, 5, 6 years out of high school or college, almost always it's going to be worth buying that time back. If you're a lifelong military person that came to the government on the civilian side after you retired from the military, that might be a different situation. That's probably going to be a case-by-case situation that you have to look at. But it's always worth getting at least the numbers run to find out what it would cost to buy that back. Same thing if we talk about you left federal employment, you took out your pension money that you'd put in, and now you've come back to work and you want to buy that time back. You are eligible to do that. Again, in each one of these situations, it's going to be a case-by-case situation based on how long you were gone in between assignments with civilian inside the government. How much was your pension that you took out? What's the interest? Those kind of things. All that's going to be a case-by-case. But again, it's always worth getting the numbers run by your HR benefits to find out what it would cost you to buy that time back. Then we can make an educated decision looking at the numbers to say, is it really worth it or not? All right. Any questions on that? All right. Last thing we'll kind of look at here before we move on to Social Security is talking about a postponed or delayed retirement. Don't have to spend a lot of time on this. This is one of those that's a very rare case a lot of times, but I do want you to know the difference. Key is remember, to be eligible for retirement, you have to have your MRA plus 30, age 60 and 20, or age 62 and 5. You are eligible. You are able to, though, do a thing where is if you have at least the 10 years in a service, you can, if say something comes along and there's a job out there that you really want to take on the private side, or something with the family that you have to leave service before you're eligible, that you can postpone or delay taking your benefits until you're eligible. So postponed, here's the key, the difference between the two. If you've already hit your MRA, so again, let's say it's 57 and you're 57, 58, and you have at least 10 years of service, if you leave, you can postpone taking your benefits until you're fully eligible, which could be MRA plus 30 if it's going to be 60 and 20 or 62 and 5. At that point, when you reach that full eligibility, you would contact OPM and tell them that you're now eligible to receive your benefits, and they will start sending you your pension check without any reductions in pay in your pension, and you'd be able to be reinstated into the benefits, including the health care, which is a big one, that you can get back into the government health care. But notice it has to be you have to have reached your MRA, which is that one based on the year you were born that we looked at earlier, and have 10 years of service. If you are not at MRA, say you did not achieve that yet, you're 54, 53, something like that, and you're wanting to leave, when you leave, you can still delay getting your pension. Notice now we're using the word delay, not postpone. You can delay getting your pension until you're fully eligible. When you're fully eligible, you can start to get that pension without any reduction. However, you will not be able to get back into the FEGLI or into the health care or any of the other benefits at that point. You cannot get reinstated. So it's really important to understand that, your benefits are very big, and we're going to talk about the health benefits and insurances the next 2 weeks, that, you want to reach that MRA and plus 10 if you're going to do this, because you want to do the postpone so you can get back into those benefits. But you can do the delayed without having to take any kind of penalty. If you want, you're just not going to be able to get back into those extra benefits. All right. Any questions on that? All right. So let's go into Social Security and the FERS supplement as the next part here. This is just a few slides, and then we're going to be done here today. So this is the third part of the pensions or the retirement system that you have as a FERS employee. So you're not eligible for Social Security till age 62. You've been paying into it all this time. Because of that, the government says, well, we understand that there can be times that you're fully eligible for retirement before 62, whether as a special provision or just as a regular FERS employee that would reach the fully eligible point before 62. And so the FERS is going to pay you a supplement until you reach age 62. A couple things to remember. Number one, if you're going to get the supplement and you're retired, at age 62, that supplement will stop. At age 62, you are not required to start taking Social Security. And again, we'll cover Social Security at one of our future meetings. We're going to have webinars at another month. We'll go into a lot of detail on Social Security. But just understand, at 62, you are not required to take Social Security as of now, but your supplement will stop. Also, that supplement is paid by OPM, not Social Security. So if you have some kind of issue with the supplement or you have questions, if you call Social Security, they're not going to know anything about it. It's all coming from OPM. All right. To be eligible for the supplement, you have to reach full eligibility. So that means you have to be MRA, reach your minimum retirement age and 30 years of service. age 60 and 20, or your special provisions, air traffic control, firefighter, law enforcement, those kind of things. You cannot go out on a postponed retirement. You can't go out early and take a reduction and still think you're going to get your supplement. It will not happen. You have to be fully eligible to receive the supplement. The way the supplement is calculated is they're going to take your age 62 Social Security benefit that they get from Social Security. They're going to multiply it by your FERS civilian years of service. Now, notice I have the word FERS underlined there. The reason is if you have military time that you bought back, the time you bought back is actually for your pension calculation. You are not able to buy back your military time for your supplement calculation. So again, if I have 23 years of service in the government and I bought 4 years of military time back, give me 27 years, for my pension calculation, I can use the 27, but I have to use the 23 here for the supplement calculation. Okay, so your age 62 Social Security benefit times your first civilian years of service divided by 40. So in this case for Joe, we're saying his Social Security benefit was going to be 1947. He had 36 years of service. Divided by 40 shows that his supplement is going to be $1,752 a month, or $21,024 annually. Okay, so that's how it's calculated. There's also what they call an earnings test. So when we do the Social Security webinar, we'll get into a lot more details of the numbers on that. But just understand is that on Social Security, what they say is if you start drawing before your full retirement age, which is going to be usually somewhere between 65 and 67, that they're going to look at your earnings. And it's going to come from W-2s, 1099s. It will not come from anything like your pension, TSP withdrawals, anything like that. It has to be active earned income that you have. They're going to look at that and they're going to say, if you earn over a certain amount, roughly right now you can see it's $21,240, they're going to take back $1 for every $2 you earn above that. That same test applies to your supplement also. So if you're retiring and you're getting the supplement and you're saying, hey, I'm going to go get a contracting job making $120,000 a year, you're pretty much saying you're not going to get your supplement because they're going to take back $1 of your supplement for every $2 you earn above it. It becomes a tax. I wish I could say it's any other way we can get around it, but it's not. If you're showing earned income, W-2, 1099 from like being a subcontractor, those kind of things. If you are special provisions, again, air traffic control, law enforcement, those kind of things, you have no reduction, no earnings test until you reach your MRA. Once you reach that MRA, so if it's 56, 57, whatever it might be, then that earnings test would go into effect. All right, so just understand that. And like I said, at one of our future meetings, we'll do the webinar. We're going to discuss that. I'm sorry, I don't remember which month it is right now, but we'll go into more details about that, about Social Security. All right. Let you know about a few forms here. This last thing here, retirement forms. The SF3107 is your actual retirement package. So I encourage everybody, if you want to, you can actually go to opm.gov. You can download the SF3107 now. Reason I say that is if you're getting closer to retirement, it might be good to just do a practice run on the forms. That way, if you see things like, for instance, they need a certified copy of a marriage certificate, not just a copy of it, a certified copy. Well, that's something you might need to order, those kind of things. Or if there's things that you don't understand, you can reach out to your HR department. You can reach out to us and try to help explain those to figure that out. That way, when it comes time to actually fill out your retirement paperwork officially, you won't have any problems. You're really just kind of doing a copy and paste, putting the information in. SF3107-2 is the survivor benefit spousal consent. We'll talk about that in the next 2 weeks. Go into that more detail. Schedules A, B, and C. If you have military time, that's where you fill that in. Also, if you have any workers' comp, that goes in there too. And finally, SF2818 is your FEGLI form. I will say the FEGLI forms and the FEGLI elections, we'll talk about those again in the next 2 weeks as we go through things. So those are the forms that you really have to worry about right now outside of your TSP forms, which we talked about last week. And again, those are all separate anyway. You don't do any TSP forms with your retirement. Like I said, you have to wait the 30 days. So that's the presentation today. I hope this has been helpful. As I mentioned, we're more than happy to help you individually if you'd like to email me or if you want to go to our website and give us your information securely. We'll offer you a complimentary benefit analysis to look at, again, not only when you're eligible, but when you're able. So Thank you for being here today. I'll open it up now to Maya and anybody who might have any questions. All right, Maya?
Sorry. I will be sending out the handouts shortly for everyone to reference. And again, if you want to get in touch with Michael, his email address will also be included in the handouts that I sent out to you today. Feel free to reach me at the office at feia.org if you have any questions or if you want to get in touch with Michael. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.